During the World Cup quarterfinals, Holan accidentally kicked the ball out of bounds. The soccer ball flew straight into the front row VIP section, hitting a couple sitting there. The tracking camera instantly put them on the stadium's giant screen. On the screen, the woman was wearing an Argentina jersey. The man beside her caught the ball. Realizing they were on the kiss cam, the two passionately locked lips. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Because that woman was my wife, Chloe. She had no idea that I was sitting on the exact opposite side of the stadium. She had no idea that the global live broadcast had just delivered the high-definition image of her kissing another man right to my eyes. Today was our 5th wedding anniversary. She told me she had to work late. I actually believed her. I came to the game alone, holding the World Cup ticket I had originally bought for her. Only at this moment did I realize she wasn't too busy. She just saved the chance of watching the game for the person she actually wanted to be with. Fine. I'm out of this marriage. Chloe was a die-hard soccer fan. Her ultimate dream was to watch the World Cup live. To get the tickets, I stayed up for 3 straight nights refreshing the ticketing website. The moment I got them, I was too excited to sleep. Because that day was not just the match, but also our 5th wedding anniversary. I had even planned to give her the anniversary gift right outside the stadium after the final whistle. Before leaving, I purposely asked her, "Can you clear your schedule for the next few days?" Chloe didn't even look up from her laptop. She frowned at her screen and said, "The project is in its final stage. I have to work overtime all week. I won't even have time to check my phone. Can you stop annoying me?" I quietly put the tickets back into my pocket. In the end, I flew to the game alone. After finding my seat, I took a picture of the empty seat next to me and sent it to her. That seat was supposed to be hers. 10 minutes later, she replied with just one cold line. "Busy. Stop texting me." I stared at the cold words on the screen and let out a bitter laugh. During the intense game, Holan made a powerful shot. The ball went off target, flying straight toward the front row VIP seats. The crowd gasped. A man caught the ball in his arms. The broadcast director instantly switched the live feed to the giant screen in the center of the stadium. Tens of thousands of fans cheered, and the camera locked onto the lucky couple. The woman was wearing a brand new Argentina jersey, with blue and white flag paint on her cheeks. Realizing they were on the big screen, the two kissed passionately. The stadium erupted into deafening cheers. I was sitting in the back row, less than 20 yards away from them. My breathing stopped. That man was Chloe's first love, Julian. He was a soccer fan too. To make sure her first love didn't have any regrets, she lied to me on our 5th anniversary. I didn't run down like a madman to confront them. Instead, I took out my phone, started screen recording, and saved the live broadcast. Then, I opened the reservation app and canceled the expensive anniversary dinner I had booked. After doing all this, I turned around and walked out of the noisy stadium. It was already 1 a.m. when I got home. The door clicked, and Chloe walked in humming a song. She was holding a gift box. Inside was a rare, limited edition jersey Julian had given her. Seeing me sitting on the couch, the smile on her face vanished. "Didn't I tell you I was exhausted from working overtime? Why are you sitting here in the dark? You scared me." She changed her shoes and threw the gift box onto the table, clearly showing it off. "Why can't you be romantic like other guys? I've been working my ass off at the office, and you don't even ask how I am. You just sit here with a resting bitch face." She poured a glass of water, her voice full of impatience. I looked at her self-righteous face and pulled a folder from under the table. "So your idea of working overtime is sitting in a front row VIP seat with your ex?" Chloe's hand trembled, spilling water onto the floor. Did you stalk me?" I didn't want to argue. I pushed the folder in front of her. "Chloe, here is your 5th anniversary gift." The words printed at the top of the page read, "Divorce agreement." Chloe stared at the words, her face turning pale instantly. "Are you crazy? You want a divorce just because I went to a game? Julian just got back to the country. He has no one here. What's wrong with me keeping an old friend company?" I threw my phone over. The screen was playing the live broadcast of her snuggling in Julian's arms and kissing him. Does an old friend require you to lie to your husband about working overtime? Does an old friend require you to make out in front of millions of viewers? Chloe went dead silent, her lips trembling. That was just for the kiss cam. I was too excited and did something stupid." She reached out frantically to grab my hand. I stepped back to avoid her and threw a pen at her feet. "Sign it. We're going to City Hall tomorrow morning." "I'm not signing. I will never sign." Chloe's eyes welled up with tears, her voice cracking. 5 years of marriage. You're really throwing it away over this." "I didn't throw it away. You did." I stood up, grabbed my pre-packed suitcase, and walked straight out the door. Behind me, I heard the sound of the gift box being slammed onto the floor, followed by Chloe's hysterical crying. But none of it had anything to do with me anymore. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, Chloe grabbed my suitcase from behind. "It's just a game. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Julian and I have history. Can't you be a man and be a little more open-minded? She snatched my backpack from the entryway table and pulled out the ticket stub inside. Seeing the seat number, she let out a mocking laugh. This is the surprise you talked about? You couldn't even afford a VIP seat. You wanted me to sit in these cheap, crowded seats. Julian got front row seats easily. You couldn't even give me a decent experience, and now you're blaming me? She ripped the ticket into pieces. Your cheap romance only embarrasses me. I shook her hand off and walked out without looking back. The next afternoon, Chloe sent me a text. She said her parents were at our house and demanded I come back to explain myself. When I pushed the door open, Chloe's family of 3 was sitting in the living room. My mother-in-law, Helen, had a stern face and started scolding me immediately. Couples fight, but you are being way too possessive. Chloe just went to a game with a friend. You making a scene about divorce will only make us a laughingstock. My father-in-law, Richard, slammed his teacup onto the table. Go apologize to Julian, and we'll forget this ever happened. I laughed out of sheer anger and pointed at myself. My wife kissed her ex in front of millions of people, and you want me to apologize? Richard stood up abruptly, pointing his finger at my face. Julian has a weak heart. His emotions can't handle stress. If anything happens to him because of your drama, can you even take responsibility? Chloe walked over and held Richard's arm. Dad, don't get angry. Let me talk to him. She turned to me, her tone incredibly casual. Julian just got back to the country and hasn't found a place to stay yet. Since you want a separation anyway, clear out of the master bedroom and let him move in for a few days. I don't feel comfortable leaving him alone in a hotel. I stared at this absurd family, pulled out my phone, and turned the volume to the max. Chloe's voice echoed in the living room. He's actually my first love. I lied to my husband about working overtime. Richard and Helen's faces turned incredibly ugly. Chloe screamed and lunged forward to grab my phone. Go ahead and delete it. It's backed up on iCloud, I said coldly. Chloe's hand froze in midair, and she slammed the phone onto the couch in frustration. If you were there, why didn't you warn me? You did this on purpose to humiliate me. At that moment, I saw this woman for who she truly was. She didn't think she did anything wrong. She only hated me for not helping her cover up her affair. I bent down, picked up the divorce papers from the table, and put them back in the folder. Tomorrow morning at 9. I'll see you at City Hall. Don't be late. We are getting a divorce. The next morning at 9, my phone buzzed. Chloe sent a photo of Julian lying in a hospital bed with an IV in his hand. Julian had a relapse because of the video you played last night. I have to stay at the hospital. Postpone the divorce. Don't be so heartless. I grabbed her ID card she had left at home and went straight to the hospital. As I approached the room, I heard Julian's playful laugh through the gap in the door. Chloe, you just made up an illness, and Logan actually believed it? Chloe's voice sounded playful. Shoo, keep it down. I need to keep that idiot calm first. If we really divorce, I can't let him keep the downtown apartment and our savings. I stood outside, listened to the whole thing, and walked away. I went straight back to our apartment. At 3 p.m., the front door was kicked open. Chloe rushed into the study, pulling open every drawer and throwing files all over the floor. She gripped the house deed, her face dark with anger. Why is this deed only in your name? Why didn't you add me after we got married? She slammed the deed onto the desk, demanding an explanation. We are married. What's yours is mine. You need to add my name to the deed right now. Also, Julian quit his job to be with me. You have to hire him at your company. I sat in my chair, looking at her coldly. Do you think that's even possible? Chloe pulled out her phone and threatened me with her Snapchat family group. If you don't agree, I'll post in the group chat that you emotionally abused me and drove me to depression. I'll make sure your parents can never show their faces around our relatives again. I picked up my iPad and opened the living room security camera app. Go ahead. For every text you send, I will post a high-definition clip of this security footage to your company's Slack group. The arrogance on Chloe's face instantly froze. She quickly changed her expression to a victim's face, her eyes turning red as she reached for my arm. Logan, I was just stressed. Julian is just an outsider. You are my husband, the only one I love. I opened my phone and played the World Cup clip right in front of her face. He's actually my first love. I lied to my husband. Chloe's face turned paper white. She opened her mouth, but couldn't squeeze out a single word of defense. I grabbed her wrist, dragged her to the front door, and pushed her out. Then, right in front of her, I deleted her fingerprint access. I slammed the heavy door shut. From outside, I could hear Chloe frantically banging on the door, crying and begging. I walked back to the living room and threw her trash into the bin. I would never believe a single word out of that woman's mouth again. I submitted a transfer request to my company's out-of-town branch. I packed up all the cheap gifts Chloe had given me over the years and mailed them back to her. The next second, Chloe's Instagram was updated. The picture was a close-up of Julian's hand with an IV. 5 years of love ruined by baseless jealousy. I am losing my mind. Does a married woman have no right to have friends? Underneath, comments from her relatives and friends started piling up. They were all calling me heartless, petty, and toxic. I opened our family group chat on Snapchat. Without saying a word, I sent 3 video files. They were all proof of Chloe and Julian's affair. The relatives who were just bashing me in the comments went dead silent. In less than 30 seconds, Helen sent me a direct message. How can you be so immature? Delete those videos right now. Don't wash your dirty laundry in public. Do you want Chloe to never show her face in front of her relatives again? Go apologize to Chloe, and we will let this go. I typed back. Chloe did those things herself. I didn't make her do them. After sending it, I blocked her and left the group chat. The night before I left the city, I went to a hotel to pick up some luggage I had stored there. The elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor banquet hall. The first thing I saw was Chloe holding Julian's arm, walking in happily. She was wearing a custom-made designer gown. It was the anniversary gift I had spent 3 months of my salary on. The guests raised their glasses to congratulate them. Chloe laughed happily. After all these years, I'm finally back with the man I was meant to marry. My past marriage was just a nightmare. Now that I'm awake, I deserve to be happy. The guests cheered, and Julian leaned in to kiss her cheek. I stood at the end of the hallway, watching this farce coldly. I pulled out my phone and messaged Marcus, the hotel manager, on WhatsApp. Marcus, is the special gift ready? When they cut the cake, play it on the big screen at max volume. After sending it, I grabbed my suitcase and walked into the downbound elevator. Enjoy my gift, Chloe. The elevator doors of the Ritz-Carlton closed with a soft, pneumatic hiss, sealing me into a quiet, brushed steel box that smelled faintly of lavender. Floor polish. Outside, the heavy bass of the banquet hall's sound system was still vibrating through the concrete floor, but as the elevator began its smooth downward plunge, the noise faded into a dull, rhythmic static. I leaned against the brass handrail, my fingers tracing the smooth handle of my leather suitcase. In my pocket, my phone was completely silent. I had already turned off my primary SIM card, leaving only my corporate line active. The 5 years of carrying her family's financial debts, the 3 years of sleeping with an empty seat next to me, the night my mother died while she was chasing her future with Julian, all of it had simply evaporated, leaving a clean, cold space in my chest. Enjoy my gift, Chloe. I had sent the final files to Marcus's terminal 10 minutes ago. It wasn't just the stadium kiss cam clip. It was the security footage from our study, the 40 seconds of raw, high-definition audio where she had screamed that she was going to use her family's Snapchat group to destroy my parents' reputation if I didn't add her name to the house deed. And at the very end, the recorded phone call between her and Julian in the hospital corridor, where she had giggled and called me an idiot, who was easy to keep calm. At exactly 9:15 p.m., the banquet staff wheeled a massive 5-tier cake, decorated with sugar-spun roses, into the center of the hall. Chloe stood beside Julian, her hand resting on the silver handle of the cake knife, her custom-made designer gown catching the glare of the spotlights. Was smiling, her eyes bright and wide, looking like a woman who had successfully executed a bank heist and was now celebrating the laundry process. Julian, she murmured, her voice carrying easily through the quiet room as she leaned her head against his shoulder. This is our beginning. The nightmare is finally over. Yes, Julian smiled, his hand gently stroking her bare shoulder. We're finally home. The master of ceremonies raised his microphone. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please look at the main screen for a special anniversary tribute to our beautiful couple, provided by a close friend of the family. The lights in the hall dimmed to a low, warm amber. The massive projector screens on either side of the stage flickered to life. But there were no childhood photos. There were no pictures of their college graduation. The first thing that played was the high-definition security footage of my study, the audio booming through the hall's professional sound system at max volume. If you don't agree, I'll post in the group chat that you emotionally abused me and drove me to depression. I'll make sure your parents can never show their faces around our relatives again. The room went dead silent. The smile on Chloe's face didn't fade. It froze, her fingers tightening around the silver cake knife until her knuckles went a sickly, splotchy white. Then the second clip played, the hospital corridor recording, her voice playful and sharp. Mr. Gray, you just made up an illness, and Logan actually believed it? Keep it down. I need to keep that idiot calm first. If we really divorce, I can't let him keep the downtown apartment and our savings. A collective gasp ran through the room. Several of her relatives, who had been loudly calling me heartless in the comments section only hours ago, instantly put down their glasses, their faces turning an ugly, gray paper color under the dim light. Chloe. Julian's hands began to shake, his fingers losing their grip on the crystal glass. What is this? Who authorized this video? Chloe didn't answer. She stood by the cake, her breathing shallow, her eyes wide, wild with a sudden, suffocating panic. She looked at the screen, then at the entrance doors, and finally at her mother, Helen, who was staring at her with a look of pure, unadulterated horror. Turn it off! Helen shrieked, her voice losing all its elegant, maternal polish, as she ran toward the tech booth. Turn it off! Someone is hacking the system. The files are faked. But the hotel technicians didn't move. They stood by their terminals there, hands behind their backs, under the direct, quiet orders of Marcus. The play was going to run to the end. The next 3 days were a masterclass in silent decay. In the past, whenever Chloe and I had our fights, the apartment would remain immaculate. The clothes were always dry cleaned, the groceries stocked, the small lavender bundle in our bathroom replaced every Friday to keep the air smelling of fresh rain. Now the townhouse on the hill felt cold, dusty, and entirely too large. Chloe had tried to track me down. She had gone to my parents' house only to find the gates locked and a formal legal warning from my attorney posted to the brick mailbox. She had called my office, only to be informed by the HR department that my transfer to the Sanford branch had been finalized, and I was no longer on the regional directory. And then there was Julian. Without my corporate accounts to fund his faked medical treatments, his fragile health had suddenly become a very expensive reality. Chloe, Julian said, his voice carrying that sharp, petulant whine he used when he was losing his patience. He was sitting on the edge of the master bed in her mother's small rental apartment, his dark hair messy, his fingers twisting the strap of his medical pouch. The pharmacy called. The blood pressure medication isn't covered by our temporary insurance anymore. They said the prescription was canceled because Logan's company pulled their medical group plan. Chloe didn't look up from her laptop. Her fingers were moving frantically across her keyboard as she tried to draft a public retraction for her Instagram page. I don't have the cash, Julian, she said, her voice hollow. The lawyers froze our joint accounts yesterday morning. Logan's firm has filed a civil recovery suit for the $77,000 of corporate M&A funds I used to buy your car lease last year. The car. Julian's voice rose in panic. But, you said the car was a gift. You said your family's company had covered it. He found the invoice, Julian, she yelled, her composure completely shattering. As she stood up from her chair. He found the digital ledger. He knows everything. My dad had to sell his country club membership yesterday just to pay the first installment of the court fees. If we don't find a way to get him to withdraw the suit, we're going to be on the street. Call him. Julian shrieked, his face turning an ugly mottled gray. Tell him. You're sorry. Tell him the whole thing was my fault. I'll move out. Just don't. Let them take the car. Chloe looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a sudden suffocating wave of disgust. This was her first love. This was the man she had faked a terminal illness for, the one she had spent 5 years comparing me to. He didn't care about her family's ruin. He didn't care about her mother's blood pressure. He only cared about his Mercedes sedan. He blocked me, Julian, she whispered, her hands dropping to her sides. Blocked everyone. Sanford City was quiet in the winter. The air smelled of salt, pine needles, and the cold mist that rolled off the Pacific every morning. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves against the black cliffs of the harbor. I sat in my new office on the 6th floor of a restored brick warehouse near the waterfront, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand, reviewing the final draft of our new regional logistics contract. My desk was a beautiful, vintage piece of oak, entirely clear except for a glass vase of fresh yellow tulips and my drawing tablet. A quiet knock sounded on the glass door. Mr. Logan? My assistant, a young girl named Clara, said, stepping inside. The representatives from the State Education Board are here for the software demonstration. Are you ready? Yes, I said, rising from my desk. I was wearing a simple, tailored charcoal suit and a clean white shirt, my hair cut short, my skin looking bright and healthy under the cool northern sun. My left hand was bare, the skin where my wedding band used to sit smooth and unblemished, free of the pale, thin circle that usually marks a divorced man. As I walked down the corridor toward the main boardroom, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Marcus. Marcus. Logan, the Gray Group has officially filed for bankruptcy. Richard Vance's home has been listed for foreclosure by the bank. He's been trying to reach you through our firm, but we've returned all his papers to sender. I typed a quick reply. Logan. The papers are signed. There is nothing left to discuss. How are things with Chloe? A long silence fell over the line. Marcus. She's working 20 hours a week at a local retail store near the old harbor. Her parents have moved into a rented flat. They've been completely Blacklisted from our social circle. No one will take their calls. I looked at the screen, and for the first time in 5 years I realized my chest felt completely light, completely quiet, and finally beautifully free. Logan. I have a board meeting now, Marcus. Talk to you later. I closed the chat window, put my phone on silent, and pushed open the heavy, double glass doors of the boardroom. The division of our shared assets was completed by the end of the month. The Vance Group's legal team had spent 48 hours going through our financial records, but my lawyers had been too sharp. The premarital agreement I had signed 5 years ago was watertight, and the downtown apartment had been purchased with my own separate savings before our marriage. Chloe sat in the conference room of Vance and Partners, her face pale, her eyes hollowed out by 6 weeks of legal warfare and public scandal. She didn't look like the proud, beautiful star girl of our college years. She looked like an empty shell, her silk dress hanging loose and wrinkled on her shrunken frame. Logan, she said, her voice a dry, rattling whisper as she picked up the pen to sign the final page of the divorce agreement. We were together for 5 years. 5 years. How could you just destroy my entire family over this? For a game? For a tournament? I didn't destroy you, Chloe, I said, keeping my hands folded in my lap, my voice as calm as the sea. You built a house of sand, and you were surprised when the tide came in. You thought because I was quiet, because I was devoted, I would always be waiting in the corner of your bedroom, ready to pick up your laundry and ask for your permission to buy a dress. I stood up, not waiting for her to finish her tears. The pen is yours, Chloe, I said, walking toward the door. Keep it. It's the only thing in this room you can actually afford. The door opened wide, the cold wind from the stairs blowing through the office. My assistant was standing there, holding my leather coat and my private keys. Beside her stood Marcus, carrying his folder, and my new design partner, a tall, quiet woman with dark eyes who had worked beside me for 3 years to build the agency. Are you ready, Logan? She asked, her voice carrying a quiet, genuine warmth. Yes, I smiled, stepping out into the bright, clean light of the lobby. Let's go. The Gray Group's old office building was in a state of quiet, high-intensity collapse. The news of the twin birth fraud had gone viral, turning the Vance family's high society reputation into a public joke. The local newspapers played the story of the silent savior on every page, with dozens of former partners coming forward to describe the years of systematic abuse and neglect I had endured while building my fiancé's company. I sat in my cozy, sunlit study in my new downtown apartment, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand, reviewing the final draft of my civil suit. My phone, sitting on the wood beside my tea, vibrated once. It was a news notification from the city. Former billionaire Richard Vance's bankruptcy case concluded. Court orders liquidation of remaining personal assets to fund the Vance Memorial Trust. Beneath the headline was a small photo of Richard standing outside the municipal courthouse. He was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack gray coat, his hair completely white, his eyes hollow, entirely free of the billions that had once made him untouchable. And as for Chloe, she was currently serving her second year of a 15-year sentence in a state penitentiary, her name permanently removed from the company registry, her family's empire dismantled by the creditors and the prosecutors. I looked at the screen for a long, quiet moment. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the sharp, twisting pain of the trauma that had kept me awake during those cold winter nights in the apartment. The boy who had pulled me out of the river, and the girl who had faked her pregnancy were gone, reduced to simple, dry statistics in a folder I would never open again. I closed the laptop, put my phone on silent, and picked up my tea. The coastal town of Mendocino was quiet in the winter. The air smelled of salt, pine needles, and the cold mist that rolled off the Pacific every morning. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic crash of the waves against the black cliffs of the harbor. I sat on the wooden deck of my small, gray-shingled cottage, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand. I was wearing a simple, dark green sweater, my abdominal scars completely healed, leaving only 3 tiny, pale lines on my skin that were invisible under my clothes. Beside me on the table lay my drawing tablet, its screen displaying a clean, elegant landscape design for our new municipal park project. Logan. I looked up. My colleague, a tall, quiet man with dark hair and a green backpack, named Marcus, was standing by the glass door, holding a fresh batch of warm cinnamon rolls. The wind is picking up, Logan, Marcus said, sitting down beside me and pulling a wool blanket over our knees. Are you cold? I looked down at the design on my screen, then at the golden sunset over the ocean and finally at his warm, genuine smile. No, I said, leaning my head against his shoulder. I'm very warm. Across the water, the first yellow lights of the harbor were starting to glow in the dark, but I didn't look at them. I closed my laptop, took a sip of my warm tea, and let the clean, cold wind off. The water carry the last dry leaves of the past away into the endlessly beautiful horizon ahead.